the administration of Abraham Lincoln. From that time and date, a de facto Congress of the United States Corporation plotted and planned to hypothecate the estates of all the natural peoples of the land, claiming the lands and estates as booty and prize. The assumed spoils were hypothecated to their own private usages for profit and for sale, via the stock market and by private transfer. For all intents and purposes, all following de facto legislation issued by them, the fake Congress, was directed to achieve that goal. The intent and misprision mission was and is to convert such rights, estates, and properties to their own benefit and to escheat, write that down because you need to know what that means, the stolen wealth under the jurisdiction of their foreign, for-profit, and private kinship oligarchy. With redundancy, one must be reminded of the Act of Congress 1871. One is advised to at least make a public proclamation that demonstrates that one is not volunteering one's estate or property or rights to support or to agree to the frauds initiated by that alien and de facto Congress. Reversioner. I, the living man or woman, and then you can put your attribute there, name or attribute, and then you can also interject the nom de guerre in order to demonstrate that you're authorized representative for that estate, although it's in an ex rel position because you didn't create it. But you do have a claim there too, all right, by reversion, all right? So I, the living man, woman, repudiate and rebut all hypothecation claims made by foreign persons doing business as or associated with the United States Incorporated. I do therefore publicly and privately proclaim and declare my divine and natural rights to my corporal and incorporeal hereditaments, and affirm, notice, and claim reversion to my estate. Therefore, and this is the nature of understanding what we've been talking about all night, all right? This will be used in any instance in its nature, dealing with any administrator pretending to be judge, any so-called collectors of so-called fake credits, any so-called law officers, so-called, any so-called banks, mortgage companies, whatever, they're all Roman. Whenever you deal with any one of them, you deal with the Jesuits. Anyone, doesn't matter whether Sears, Roman Jesuit. Kmart, doesn't matter. You understand? They're all members of the Roman Curia. All right? I, the living man and rightful heir, am not lost at sea. We'll discuss that later. I affirm and declare my right of reversion of estate, and I make no claim with respect to the title and misrepresented name, man of straw, and nom de guerre being a title, and the spurious creations of the foreign de facto United States corporate operatives, actors, and owners. And I surrender and assign any and all reversionary interests to the foreign United States and subsidiaries for full acquittance discharge settlement. Write that phrase down. Acquittance discharge settlement. And closure. Write that down. Because you need to get that grounded with yourself later. All right, we ain't going to go into it necessarily tonight, but you get that grounded. Of my reliance, Title 12, United States Code 95A, Part 2. Write that down. And I assume no liabilities. I repeat, and I assume no liabilities or debts, however contrived, among its associates. And I do not consent to stand as surety, quote unquote, for the foreign United States, all caps, /US corporation, entity owners, directors, or administrators, nor for its subsidiaries or associates at any point or moment in time. And so what you lock all doors by which they're alleging that you're agreeing to the debt. This is predicated on what we've been talking about tonight and a few other things, but if you understood what your nationality and birthright is, if you understood it's been hypothecated, if you understood that the U.S. corporation company platform is set to administer it, and if you understood that these subdivisional agencies are members of the Roman Curia, with its operatives being secret members of the Roman Curia, and their job is to assist in robbing you, this is your statement made to repudiate them on the record, for the record, in any matter, from a ticket to a mortgage foreclosure. Are we clear? Get in the mic.
Okay, so
now start back so we can hear everything you said.
okay, and I said I do have a question then, because you got me thinking now. In lieu of us,
Which is why we're talking.
in lieu of us being the Ahuti, the original communicators that you have reiterated so much, right? What we're doing a lot now is like even like how we're streaming or we're communicating on phones or whatever, right?
Which is your job to do. Now remember this, let me slow down because it's appreciated what you're doing. But Drawley commanded all sheiks, grand sheiks, and all conscious Moorish Americans to not only produce literature, but to keep up with the electronic age, radio, etc.
Yes.
You're supposed to be communicating. And because those who have been charged decades ago to deliver this information to the people have breached their trust, it is your duty to make sure it gets out there. It is our duty, being conscious Moorish Americans, your elders, to see that you get this information in spite of them blocking you, in spite of them pretending that we're renegades and a whole bunch of other things, because we're going to give you the documents and make sure you freely share them with others. And when their consciousness raises, the bonds die. Keep this in mind. This is the key. All U.S. private corporate bonds that were constructed since the basis of the Civil War and the overthrow of the Republic in order to negate their obligations to the Constitution and to the treaty, etc., which is the supreme law of the land, and to enslave the descendants of the Moors on their own land, with the cooperation of many of their own so-called leader guys who keep calling themselves black. Not by accident. If you teach the people the history, they will see the spurious intent and operations, and when you teach someone else, this is what happens. Since the U.S. corporate operations is back on bonds, those bondage is not a chain. The bonds were set up after Lincoln bankrupted the United States Corporation Company that was registered in France. They re-registered it in Puerto Rico. Keep this in mind. Lincoln bankrupted it. They re-registered it in Puerto Rico and in Guam. All right? That lasted until 1913. Then New Drawley came along and spoiled it. It crashed again. They re-registered it again. That lasted up until 1928-29. They got rid of New Drawley in 29. It crashed anyway. It wasn't exposed until 32-33. Louis McFadden planned to sue them on this basic principle that we're talking about right now. Yeah. So they poisoned him when he went visit his daughter in New York. Right? Trafalgar talked about it in 96. Of course, they killed him a couple years ago now. Then he spoke before the Congress and exposed part of it, including the fact that they converted the allodial titles in 1913 to mortgages and deeds. And so you understand that everybody, anyone that's holding any office in the United States Corporation Company is essentially the Knight Templar, Knight Columbus, if they're Europeans, etc. So that's kind of a breach. So they killed him a couple years ago. Nevertheless, we've been exposing even his correspondence to the people for years, and still being attacked by Grand Sheiks in the Moorish Temple. Don't confuse the temple's purpose with people attacking this information. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because the information belongs to everybody. But understand their motive as to why not exposing this and why they don't like people like me who's exposing it, because it shows not only that they're in breach of trust, they've been hiding this information. And that our people have been on a treadmill fighting in the wrong direction, giving up their birthright when they're supposed to be redeemed from that platform. So, let me give you an example. I'm give you an example so that you can see in Tropicon's letter. And this is why I give it to people on the flash drive too. All right. But I know this. See, when you share this information with people who may not have any bent one way or another, they're not necessarily, they're just interested. But if you give them information and they have any kind of sense of reasoning, basic, critical thinking, some of them will be the best redeemers of our people and never had a nationality card and will do more work for the uplifting of our people than a lot of these people that got all these badges and jewelry and fezzes of different colors and been in the movement for years, walking around like peacocks while our people have been suffering. Yes. But their pockets have been full. Yes. With their 501c3 kickbacks. And it ain't about Jesusness either. You know that for surety. But anyway, let's go to Tropicon's letter. But I want to express to you again why certain things we do redundantly to remind people, because if they start retaining this, they'll start thinking on their feet. Once it's uncomfortable with it. Like when you're training doing katas or something like that in karate or jabbing and stuff like that, and they smack you. It's like, oh, that hurt me. So you make me respect the game, because you get in the real world, they're gonna try to take your head off. And after a while, it becomes natural to you. You just dance. It becomes natural. But first, like somebody do like this and you go, oh. Yes. But after a while you get comfortable, take off them training wheels and get with it, right? Yes. Likewise, once you understand what they did to steal your birthright, yes. Remember, the protocols is like obvious. All right? Yes. So let's do two things. We're going to talk about as an example, Treaty of Rome, right? House Bill Resolution, Treaty of Rome. So we want to show people why your clergy across the board get mad at guys like Taji. This is your congressional record, right? This is their real oath. You know how they say we're out here just trying to save souls and stuff? And trying to make people know the Lord is, and we want to submit the people to Jesusness, and we out here saving souls and delivering. Have you been delivered? And all that stuff, right? Well, let's show you who they're really working for. This is their oath. This is in the congressional records, right? How come they don't show this stuff? This is why they got 501c3. All right, silence. Here you go. This congressional records, let's read Article 3. And let's read this together, y'all, because y'all can read. Convinced that the principles of religion contribute most powerfully to keep nations in the state of passive obedience, which they owe to their princes. The high contracting parties declare it to be their intention to sustain in their respective states those measures which the clergy may adopt with the aim of ameliorating their own interests, intimately connected with the preservation of the authority of the princes, and the contracting powers join in offering their thanks to the Pope for what he has already done for them, and solicit their constant cooperation in their views of submitting the nations. Does it sound like they're submitting the people and the nations to Jesusness? Tell me what P-O-P does, what part does this spell J-E-S-U-S? And notice the first line, convinced that the principles of religion contribute most powerfully to keep nations in the state of passive obedience. I thought religion was supposed to be used to spiritually uplift the people. Right. Because they ain't getting religion, they get dogma. The priesthood maintain religion for themselves. That's how they get their degrees. That's why they don't like Taji guy. I showed their real oath. Do y'all think I made this up?
No. No, sir.
That's congressional records for those who want to do some research. So when Pastor Bigfoot starts playing dumb, you wonder why he can, without a conscience, ask the sisters to get him a $60 million airplane to pass the word. The word of Roman. Is that congressional records, y'all?
Yes.
All right, American Diplomatic Code?
Yeah.
So you think your politicians don't know this?
They have to.
Oh, of course. Of course they do. You think the clergy don't know this?
They have to.
Why they doing so well at the expense? Now you understand where Yahshua was arguing with them, stealing the widow's pennies? It continues, y'all. That's what the signal when they murdered Malcolm. Get your hand out of our pocket, which means what? They was called teleoperatives. They knew it all the time. That French Muslim school, Malcolm, to you all, Maghrib is Wednesday Salah. To the rest of the world, Maghrib is Morocco, the most extreme West. You left home, brother. Don't come here with that black and white stuff. Of course, they couldn't pay him off, they couldn't buy him off, so they murdered him. And it's after slandering him. But they all got these degrees too. All of them got these degrees. That's how they get their titles. You all need to know that. And you need to tell your children. So when people got titles, they get them titles because they're adults. Not because they're nice guys. Talking about, my boy is a good surgeon. You get a headache, just come on over and lay $1,500. You know what I'm saying? Cut your headache out. And if you roll out this dirty towel with these rusty butter knives, I suggest you get up immediately and run very quickly. And this is what they've been doing to people in these houses in the name, not in the fact, in the name of religion. Are we clear? Yeah. While knowing that they've been teaching them dogma to keep them passive and under control, under the secret treaty of Verona, for the sake of the Pope of Rome. Are we clear, y'all?
Clear.
Now, again, now we're going to go to Tropicons. Now, this is James Tropicon on the floor of the congressional floor of the House. It's again congressional records. Because the scholars will attack and been telling people that I've been telling them a whole bunch of stuff, creating a bunch of problems for them. No, I'm creating problems for them because it's exposing them and their criminal keisters. We've been working with these politicians, making these people think that the U.S. democracy is a government, is a country, knowing that it's a cabal, operations stealing their birthright, their estate. So here's Tropicon. Y'all got that? See the United States Congressional Record?
Yeah.
Huh? March 17, 1993.
Yeah.
Volume page 33. Page H-1303. So when you hear some of the great seats talking about Taji making this stuff up, there's congressional records. They got them too. They got them too. And they were supposed to be enforcing the law. Act 1. Anyone who can go to Moor Science Temple of America, read Act 1 of the Moor Science Temple of America. They're empowered to make law, and they've been telling these people throughout the years to teach law and civics. And that's act number 1. Well, here's the law. There's Congress on the floor, House of Representatives. Speaker, Representative James Tropicon Jr., Representative of Ohio, addressing the House. Mr. Speaker, you are here now in Chapter 11. Members of Congress are official. Does that say trustees?
It does.
So shouldn't you all know what trust law is?
Yeah.
Shouldn't you understand that anyone in a position of authority is a trustee?
Yeah.
So then shouldn't you know how trusts are administered? Why are you not taught these things? Why didn't they tell you about the trust Drew Ali set up to protect you? You ask these Moors about trust law, they don't know what the swell you're talking about.
That's true.
That's that renegade stuff. And the laptop Moors and stuff.
They do. When they should have been teaching these people. Presiding over the greatest reorganization of any bankrupt entity. Does that say bankrupt country?
No.
Bankrupt entity in world history. The U.S. government is a private entity. It's not a country. We are setting forth, hopefully, a blueprint for our future. There are some who say it is a coroner's report that will lead to our demise. It is an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved. Can y'all read that with me? It is an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act, March the 3rd, 1933, 48 Statute 1, Public Law 89-719, declared by President Roosevelt being bankrupt and insolvent. House Joint Resolution 192, 73rd Congress in session, June the 5th, 1933. Joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause dissolved the sovereign authority of the United States and the official capacities of all United States governmental officers, and departments, and it is further evidence that the United States federal government exists today in name only. How come they won't tell people that? Because they got agreements with them to perpetrate them upon their own people as if they're the legitimate government, which had been overthrown prior to this and again. And this was when Roosevelt started doing the birth certificates as bank bonds, because they ran out of marriage certificates for the eggs that were unborn under the DAR. And all scholars know that. To do what? To steal your birthright. That's why they keep telling people Drawley and teach civics. Why? Civics is the science of government. How you gonna have a nationality and you don't teach civics? You can only get away with that with ignorant people or people who are traitors to their own cause. Anyway, let's go a little further. A little counter to Noble Drawley, how they countered him. We won't go into all that. Then we'll go into the post letter again. This is redundant. Let's look at this part. These debt notes. Remember when I read the Banking Act, right?
Yeah.
All right, now look at this. It is essential that we comprehend the distinction, keep in mind congressional records, the distinction between real money and paper money substitute. Nice way of saying counterfeit, isn't it?
Right.
All right, well, one cannot get rich by accumulating money substitutes. One can only get deeper in debt. We the people no longer have any money. Most Americans have not been paid any money for a very long time, perhaps not in their entire life. Now do you comprehend why you feel broke?
All the time.
Now do you understand why you are bankrupt along with the rest of the country? Federal Reserve notes, and write this down, you all got to keep this in mind whenever you have any law argument whatsoever. All right? Federal Reserve notes are unsigned checks written on a closed account. So whenever you're talking about foreclosures, debt, creditors, student loans, etc., this is what they're actually knowing what they're dealing with, and then talking to you as if you owe them money when they know that the liens were bonds against your own estate in the first place. They loaned you nothing.
Right.
Federal Reserve notes are unsigned checks written on a closed account. Federal Reserve notes are an inflatable paper system designed to create debt through inflation, devaluation of currency. Whenever there is an increase of the supply of money substitute in the economy without a corresponding increase in the gold and silver backing, inflation occurs. Inflation is an invisible form of taxation that irresponsible, it should be corrupt, irresponsible governments inflict on their citizens. The Federal Reserve Bank, who controls the supply and movement of Federal Reserve notes, has everyone fooled. They have access to an unlimited supply of Federal Reserve notes, paying only for the printing cost of what they need. Federal Reserve notes are nothing more than promissory notes for U.S. Treasury security. That's them T-bills that they set up after the Civil War.
Yes.
A promise to pay the debt to the Federal Reserve Bank, the Jesuits.
That's it.
There is a fundamental difference between, quote-unquote, paying and discharging a debt. To pay a debt, you must pay with value or substance, i.e. gold, silver, water, or commodity. That's why all scholars carry silver coin. They call made men, whether in masonry, any secret order, any priesthood, they always carry a coin. This is how they talk to each other amongst men or amongst travelers who know what's really up. That's the signal, so you don't have to talk with the dummies who are slaves, who've been enslaved by their own. Drawley brought you out of that. Understand why he told you what he told you. Understand why he set up the old Canaanite temple. To liberate you from the priesthood. Including your leader guys with these titles. That they don't damn deserve. Not excusing my language either.
That's right. Take us back up.
There's a fundamental difference between paying and discharging a debt. To pay a debt, you must pay with value or substance, i.e. gold, silver, water, or commodity. With Federal Reserve notes, you can only discharge a debt. So you must know what discharge is. Now you understand the quittance, discharge, settlement? That's a law statement in relationship to your estate when they claim that the debt is yours. Keep that in mind. That's why I did that reversionary article. Concept. You cannot pay a debt with a debt currency system. Are we clear?
Yeah.
Well, let's repeat it together then. You cannot pay a debt with a debt currency system. You cannot service a debt with a currency that has no backing and value or substance. No contract in common law is valid unless it involves the exchange of good and valuable consideration. Unpayable debt transfer of power and control to the sovereign power structure that has no interest in money, law, equity, or justice because they have so much wealth already. In other words, that's the platform they set up for the kingship, oligarchy, and they already robbed you. Even your labor has been hypothecated, and they're set up from the top to bottom as members of the Roman Curia. That's why they all must be Masons of Eastern Stars. Masonry is not corrupt. It is the knowledge of the history of man that's being hidden by these corruptors. Understand, like water feeds you, water's ground, the body 77% water, it nourishes you, but the same cup of water can drown you if misused. So understand that likewise with masonry. Masonry simply means Isis and Horus, mother and son, and the study thereof. That which is on the earth plane. Are we clear? Or crescent in the star. Are we clear? Now, their lust for power and control, since the inception of central banking, they have controlled the fate of nations. That's how they stole your nationality. Now, remember the Secretary of State's letter? All right, now let's look at this. The Federal Reserve system is based on the canon law, so you must be familiar with the canon law. So you need to know these things so you know what you're countering. Are we clear?
Yes.
And the principles are protected under the Constitution, in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. In fact, the international bankers use the canon law trust as their model. Adding stock and naming it a joint stock trust. Get familiar with that? And we'll talk about that in the future, but you need to be aware of these things because you need to know how those persons are thinking when you walk into those rooms that you can call in courtroom. They're looking at stock walking up there past the bar. They're not looking at a human being.
Chattel.
That's right.
You understand?
Yeah.
And while you try to reason with them, they're looking at sausages.
Get over here.
Now, the U.S. Congress, which is de facto, this must be understood,
Yes.
has passed a law making it illegal for any legal, quote-unquote, person to duplicate a joint stock trust. What year? 1873. 2 years after the platform structured Act of Congress, 1871, February the 2nd. You understand? In other words, they're perfecting the political platform to steal your estate and your birthright. Are we clear?
Yeah.
All politicians understand this, all black leader guys know this, all scholars know this, and they stay away from this because this would liberate you not only just from these corruptors, but them too, who work for them, pretending that that 501c3 is a Jesus document. Federal Reserve Act was legislated post facto. That means fraudulently, in violation of law, backdated, retroactive to 1870. When you look at 1870, think the Naturalization Act, Ulysses Grant. Although post facto laws are strictly forbidden by the Constitution. Now listen.
Taj,
Yes, go ahead.
give me an example.
Get him mic.
It's a quickie, Taj. I just wanted to give an example of how a person can duplicate a joint stock.
They would disallow it, they would attack you. But this is a joint, let's talk about what a joint, real quick, because I didn't want to get into this, let's talk about a joint stock trust. This is a joint stock trust. Like say for instance, if I say that your car is mine, although it's not yours, that was not mine. You still have the car. I make up an instrument and register the car to me, where I do something to influence you to register the car to me and have my name on it. I take it and make it a bond, then I can't back it up, so I can come to a third-party interloper and have him back. And so we have a joint stock. You're the stock, but the joint stock trust, we're controlling it, and then we make another de facto law disallowing anyone else to do it so they can't intrude on this, and this is how you've been enslaved, bureaucratically. Through the joint, so the United States Corporation Company set up a joint stock trust and disallow anyone else to do it. That means you can't reverse it or remedy it. You see the point? This is why they always say that U.S. citizens can't refute the crap that they put. That's why you have no remedy. On an immediate point. This is another point of reversion. And there's another point why we tell people make a public proclamation so that they can't say that you haven't spoken up, even though they block it. And people who should have been doing this stuff 60 years ago, i.e. Grand Sheiks and Sheikhs of the Moorish Science Temple of America, which is really regencies, they haven't done their job, and Moorish Americans have been suffering across this country. They've been stealing people's property and putting their private debt on people in the name of government. They're not even government. And then they've been attacking people like me who've been exposing this information to you as if we're creating problems. Yeah, we are. We're exposing them. That's the problem. See, because when you stop, see, this is the deal. They live off the poor and off the widow's penny, and the key is blind faith. When you're no longer blind, you lose faith in the fraud, and the fiat dies. Are we clear? Clear. It lives because you have faith in it. That's its strength. It's an illusion. You understand? And now that you've been waking up and you've been proclaiming publicly to the world, them bonds are dying. And any nation state that has any USD bonds is curling up like them socks of that witch in the Wizard of Oz when the house fell upon it. Them socks, stockings, yeah, curled up in there. So Dot, you're home, girl. You just bumped your head. She's looking to go someplace, she already home. That's why they do that 3 ruffian ritual in masonry. Jubilah, jubilo, jubilum. So therefore you got the Lion of Judah, ain't got no heart. Straw man, 14th Amendment. Tin man, rusty, because they what? Cribbed all your industry. Yellow Brick Road is your Zodiac Constitution. Emerald City is your green star. Red ruby slippers, your red rag that they call your flag, the jewel. The real Yahudi, wrongly called Jew. You're the jewel. You've been robbed. By who? Who? They'll start with K. Yeah, what they do to work for them. Khazarians. The Jesuit order and your heads of all your so-called major religions are really Khazarians. They've been stealing your birthright ever since. Are we clear?
Clear.
So let's look at this. Right here. Let's read this, and then we'll go on to some other stuff, because I don't want to get too deep in this. I just want to show you the concept of reversion. Once you understand this, your concept of speaking up for yourself is like automatic. But if you don't know the history, you just think it's an attitude. You're trying to appeal to their morality. They have none. They're criminals. Because if you think that they're government, you're approaching them with that mentality. Therefore, you're already in a subordinate state of mind, which means I sanction you. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Hold them to the Constitution and Treaty. Didn't Twali say, help me in my great missionary work to bring my people back into the constitutional fold of government, enforcing our Constitution for the United States of America? It's a national will. Failure to do so, there's a consequence, and we've been catching it. Deeply, hardly, strongly, whatever. Not good. Anyway, so the Federal Reserve System is a sovereign power structure separate and distinct from federal United States government, i.e. separate and distinct from the original organic United States Republic that they overthrew in '61. That's what you must understand, what's really being said to you. The Federal Reserve is a maritime lender and or maritime insurance underwriter to the federal United States operating exclusively under Admiralty maritime law. So is that not piracy on the land? Of course it is. The lender or the underwriter bears the risk, and the maritime law compelling specific performance and paying the interest or premiums are the same. Are we clear? They're converting their private debt to you in the name of government, using that authority that they do not have, never had since 1861. Anyway, so assets of the debtor can also be hypothecated, which is to pledge something as a security without taking possession of it, as security by the lender or underwriter. The Federal Reserve Act stipulated that the interest on the debt was to be paid in gold. So they've been stealing our gold, which is what they came here for. And then they give you fiat and then claim that you are in debt for the gold that they stole from you. There is no stipulation in the Federal Reserve Act for ever paying the principal. That's why it's what? Unpayable. Now look at this paragraph and think Noble Draw Lee. When was the old Canaanite temple set up, y'all?
1913.
All right, prior to 1913, most Americans owned clear allodial title to property. How come these Moorish Americans and titles don't know about the allodial titles and why Draw Lee set up a trust? Wasn't it their job to tell them?
Yes.
How come they didn't tell them?
Go and tell,
How
bro.
come the Grand Sheiks and Sheikesses didn't tell them?
Go and tell, bro.
I guarantee you, ask 90% of them, they don't even know what an allodial title is. That's more being able to explain it to themselves or their families. Prior to 1913, most Americans owned clear allodial title to property, free and clear of any liens or mortgages. Can we read that together, y'all?
Let's read together.
Prior to 1913, most Americans owned clear allodial title to property, free and clear of any liens or mortgages, until the Federal Reserve Act 1913 hypothecated all property within the federal United States to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, in which the trustees, stockholders, see the kingship oligarchy?
Yes.
Held legal title. The U.S. citizen who's a tenant franchisee think they own their tenants. Was registered as a beneficiary to the trust via his or her birth certificate. In 1933, the Federal United States hypothecated all of the present and future properties, assets, and labor to their subjects, 14th Amendment U.S. citizen to the Federal Reserve System. Now let's go back to the Proverbs no drawing, divine warning by the proper formations. How come they don't make this correlation? They're making people think that Raleigh's making this stuff up. He's just a religious sect of Islam competing with other religious sects of Islam. It's just religion, ain't got nothing to do with civics and stuff like. He's giving you history and the restoration of your lost estate. What occurs if you don't know this history and you don't know what he's talking about? And you're in there arguing with these trust administrators thinking that they're judges. And you call them judge. And all of their offices have been extinguished. That's why you're here. To get clear. Because you must confess your own. I can't confess it for you, and no one else can confess it for you. Every man, every woman, and every child must confess their own. Declare your nationality and your birthright. Failure to do so, guess what? It's hypothecated automatically. That's why you make public reversion of the state. And that's why we put them proclamations on the site, made them available to anybody. Should have been done 70 years ago. Anyway, now I'm going to leave this, and we're going to go to, there's the clergy's oath, you all know about that. They mad because of that too. So, and this is redundant, so let's go to Abe Lincoln and his case. This is 5 years before he was even dealing with the presidency of the corporation in the United States, all clear. 1855, this is the Dungy case. We're going to just a synopsis. This is the case of William Dungy. Let's make this a synopsis. Let's go real quick so you can understand, because we'll move on to other things. So this is a slander case where William Dungy married this European woman, and Joseph Spencer, her brother, went around, after they had a family dispute, went around calling him black nigger and Negro and everything, slandering him. Now those of you who know law know that status equals a state in law, which is why all people who really are into constitutional enforcement also learn law and history and have law dictionaries and have school systems are set up where those things are taught so they can balance out what Bill Crowley said when he said enforce that Constitution. But this is the point, to show you that the issue of the lawful and legal status of the Moors is not a new argument, because some people try to lie on Crowley and say he made that stuff up. Right? That these people ain't really Moor, they're really black people. You know what I'm saying? So this is one of many cases that the Grand Sheiks and Sheikesses also know being Arabs, but they failed to publish this. So I pissed some of them off again by taking this and printing some off and start sharing it. I even stuck it through the doors of some of the temples and took it directly to some of the temples, because they keep on trying to control these people and trying to own the people. Well, let's go to this. And they pissed off me again. I don't care. You know, let's go to the case. Now that's the handwritten letter submitting the case. But let's go to the winning of the case. Abraham Lincoln further undermined Joseph Spencer by using humor to persuade the jury there was reasonable doubt regarding William Dungy's race. The attorney, Lawrence Weldon, recalled Abraham Lincoln's statement. Now, Lawrence Weldon was one of the attorneys, and also Clifton H. Moore. Lawrence Weldon and Clifton H. Moore were attorneys for William Spencer, the European. But this is the closure of the case, and this won the case, and preserved his estate, because they would have annulled the marriage, they would have took all his property, and they would have kicked him out of Illinois, because being a Negro was a crime, because everybody knows a Negro is a monkey. And at the same time, that's a sin to be outside of the honor of your mothers and fathers, because by law you have no estate without the honor of your mothers and fathers. So keep this in mind. Abraham Lincoln further undermined Joseph Spencer, by using humor to persuade the jury that there was reasonable doubt regarding William Dungy's race. The attorney, Lawrence Weldon, recalled Abraham Lincoln's statement, "My client is not a Negro, though it is a crime to be a Negro. No crime to be born with a black skin. But my client is not a Negro. His skin may not be as white as ours, but I say he is not a Negro, though he may be a Moor." Abraham Lincoln. Mr. Lincoln, interrupted Judge Davis, scarcely able to retain a smile. "You mean a Moor, M-O-O-R, not Moor, M-O-O-R-E. "Well, Your Honor, Moor, M-O-O-R, not Clifton H. Moore," which was the attorney. Replied Mr. Lincoln with a sweep of his long arm toward the table where Moore and I sat. "I say my client may be a Moor, but he is not a Negro." Abraham Lincoln won the slander case. So you can see that being in the nom de guerre, or in them brand names, tags, which is called transmitting utility for that trust, that you have no right of estate.
At all.
So when someone calls you Negro, black, or colored, they're not only slandering you, they're stealing your estate. So this rule has been going on forever with people who insist on being Negro, black, and colored, losing all their rights, and then they want to march and pray and complain. Now you understand what Dr. Ali was talking about in the Divine Warning by the Prophet for the Nation when he said our people keep practicing those names and principles that delude to slavery. That must be removed from the earth, that fraud. And these people who have this information have been charged as chiefs and grand chiefs to take this information to the four corners of the world, to all nations, and I charge them have failing to do so, and have been preoccupied attacking brothers like us who've been doing the work.
Islam.
But the people have come to our defense. I don't even waste my time trying to defend them. But the deal is they're trying to injure these people because they're taking graft in the back and think that people don't see them. So we're giving you history so you can figure it out for yourself. You let them keep messing with your babies, then you're complicit.
That's right.
That's why Drew said they're going to come, when these people going to come into these temples with their eyes already open. Sit them criminals in the back of this room. They say, oh, he takes it modestly, say them old Moors. You mean them criminals. So, and let's go to, and keep in mind that the Pope is the owner of all these members of the Roman Curia. So let's look at his letter to Obama, and let's look at the last paragraphs. And this is for those who keep on thinking that other people don't know this information, etc. Remember, all these people are members of the Roman Curia, right?
Yes.
So this is the Pope's letter to Obama. And it's issued to who else? To all members of the domestic police forces. So when you think that these people claiming to be policemen don't know this information, you're sorely mistaken. The Pope addressed them directly, including Obama and the Congress. Are we clear?
Clear.
Yes.
So issued to all members of the domestic police forces, U.S. Marshal Service, the Provost Marshal, members of the American Bar Association, and the American Armed Services. These organic American states of the Union known as, and notice these different United States, those of you who don't understand this, please write this down. Those of you who are not familiar, write these down. You must recognize these shells, because he's exposing the history. And once you understand the history, you'll understand why Raleigh set up the old Canaanite temple. All right? See that, United States of America? And then in parentheses, major. Write that down on one line. United States of America major, exercising plenary civil power upon the land. Notice how he just separated it from the land? Why did the Pope have to do that? Because you already know these 501c3 nigger leader guys who they've been paying off to control these people ain't going to tell you. So the Pope himself is telling you. Because you won't believe nobody else. You didn't believe Raleigh. So the Pope is telling you now. Because they're under pressure. So they appoint General Carter of Ham to lead and command the Grand Army of the Republic. Does it say Grand Army of the Democracy?
No.
Grand Army of the Republic. He's talking about the organic United States. Distinguished from all them other clubs that they set up since '61. And its successors under the guidance of the Joint Chiefs of Staff with their full support. Should it become necessary to suppress commercial mercenary forces? Who's commercial mercenary forces? That's these people claiming to be law enforcement, been going around screwing people, stealing their cars with tinted windows, messing with them when they're really not even officers. They're commercial mercenaries. That's who they are. Should it become necessary to suppress commercial mercenary forces operating under the guise of being federal government? Remember congressional workers we just read? So guys, which means they're imposters, don't it?
Yes.
So an imposter, are they government?
No.
Absolutely not.
They're front, ain't they? So why these black leader guys keep telling you that's your government? Well, they got a 501c3, don't they? That's why when the Europeans get tired of y'all marching and praying and writing on buildings disturbing the peace, they tell you, why don't y'all leave us the hell alone and go back to your black leaders that keep selling y'all back into slavery? Noble Drawley, be careful, Moor. Some of your own brothers and sisters wearing turbans and feathers will be trying to put you back into slavery. I guarantee you they got a 501c3, skull and bones agreement, and attacking brothers like Seth Ra and me. Hot tweet. What's up, good brother? Anyway, but let's go down. So we're not going to read the whole thing, but I want to read primal parts of the Pope's letter to show you that he's telling you your history. Right? State soil to ensure prompt cessation of hostilities and widespread understanding of the usurpations and acts of fraud which have led to any conflict. Why? Because all this fraud they've been doing for all these decades is creating all kinds of problems, these conflicts. They got to bring this stuff to a halt. Are we clear? Before things collapse. All parties must be brought to understand the nature of the federal government. Therefore, you must know civics, mustn't you? The science of government, because that's what it is. The limitations of its authority, it's called delegation of authority order, isn't it?
Yes.
That's what the limitations are. You know what they do, what they don't do when they breach, don't you?
Yes.
Breach of trust? All right. And their own obligation to act in favor of the organic states of the Union. So you need to know what organic states means. All clear? The Grand Army of the Republic shall continue to operate under General Order 100, known as the Libra Code. Get familiar with it. We'll do a subject matter on that later. Be familiar with that. From the Libra Code is also adopted for the international community, what you call the patterns of dealing with war, the law of war, right?
Yes.
All right, so that comes originally from the Libra Code. Even though it didn't come directly from Lincoln, he made such adjustments and he signed it. And so very often, sometimes in history, the Libra Code is associated with Abraham Lincoln. Are we clear?
Clear.
So the Grand Army of the Republic shall continue to operate under General Order 100, known as the Libra Code, extant from the pen of the, read this y'all, last Republic President Abraham Lincoln. How come they didn't tell you he was last president? Now you understand Noble Drawley setting up the old Canaanite temple?
Yes.
They instituted the enslavement of the heirs of the great estate, which is the Moors. So what happens if you don't know that or understand that? You're never going to approach it in any kind of manner. You're going to be calling, well, Judge Sandwich, I was working at McDonald's last week, and my check is only $35. You ain't even got no money. And then you give them that. And then sign things talking about you're in debt. And it's really their private debt of that corporation that was bankrupted in France. With these imposters pretending to be government. You see why they killed Tropicana a couple years ago now? Now, pay attention to this because the Pope's telling you the operations of government here. No orders, executive or otherwise, issued by Barack H. Obama, pretending authority on the land of the American states while operating as quote-unquote President of the United States, uppercase, corporation, nor as quote-unquote President of the United States of America, minor, are owed any performance by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Ham, or any ordinary, all plainly stated grants of contractual authority evident in the Constitution for the United States of America, small u, write that down, all these are different United States. You better know what you're talking about, and you better know which one that Drawley is sending you to when he tells you go back to that state of mind of your ancient mothers and fathers. Remain in place subject to good faith and performance of the accompanying obligations and treaties. How come they don't teach these people about the treaty? And the obligations that go with it. It was undermined with the coup d'etat of '61. Now you understand why Drew Ali set up the old Canaanite temple for the restoration of your estate and the enforcement of the Constitution, which has not been enforced. Mr. Obama is president, quote unquote, of a governmental services corporation. He's talking about the corporation that Ben Franklin set up 1754 in France that Lincoln bankrupted in 1860. That also got him killed. And the Dungy case, see the argument between Negroes, blacks, and Moors. Lincoln that put another target on his back. The suppression of original Article of Amendment 13, nobility clause, which is 20 sections. All of those things will be taught to these Moorish Americans, and they're supposed to be taking it to the people in the communities. And they're wearing the crown of the sun. Turn around pretending to draw lead and teach civics. And getting away with it. Anyway. He otherwise acts as a foreign dignitary. See, that seat of the president is a foreign dignitary, isn't it?
Yes.
So people are arguing as if Trump, Hillary, and all these rest are presidents of a country. It's a private corporation occupying Morocco. Understand the letter to the Secretary of State that I read? There we go. In neither of these capacities is he allowed any granted authority to impose upon American state citizens, endanger American state property, or command mercenary forces on American state soil, however veiled as federal civilian service agencies. We require that the Joint Chiefs of Staff and General Hand to commence measures to disarm federal civilian agency personnel and seize control of the vast stockpiles of arms which have been improperly amassed by the Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, and other agencies employed by the United States, all capital letters. Instead, they've been mercenaries going around stealing people's weapons so that you can't enforce the Constitution. Supported by your 501c3 nigger leaders. The only federal agency allowed free egress on the land of the American states is the U.S. Marshal Service. But anyway, let's go down. So we don't want to, I want to show you a few more other things. And this is relative to, let's read these two things and keep in mind the Trump speech, all right, and the Act of Congress 1871, etc. The coup d'etat, the joint stock trust, etc., that's been operating, faking as government, and the people have been paying for their own enslavement. Any expense or damage incurred by these organic states or any American state citizen as a result of actions undertaken by any federal agency personnel acting as armed mercenaries on American state soil will be understood as a result of violent crimes committed against the peaceful inhabitants of the land, and will incur immediate judgment liquidating the assets of the International Monetary Fund and the Federal Reserve, uppercase and lowercase, in payment of the stipulated reparations. Such crimes shall also be considered contract default, increasing the public debt subject to bounty. There we go, breach of trust again. So you need to know what trust is so you can do what? Make declaratory statements of breach of trust. As in your organizations as well as people claiming to be government. Grand Chiefs don't want to see that stuff, do they? Don't be handing them little documents and stuff. Yeah, right. Any and all corporate officers of the United States, all uppercase, or any successor organizations inheriting federal service contracts who support, condone, or promote such crimes against the American states or American state citizens shall be subject to arrest and prosecution for commercial and violent crimes, and all federal officials operating as elected or appointed officials of the United States of America minor, United States of America minor, distinguished from the United States of America major, pay attention to these shells, who support, condone, or promote such crimes against the American states or American state citizens shall be subject to arrest, confiscation of the assets, and deportation to Puerto Rico, Guam, or such other states as may be willing to receive them. Such foreign officials include members of the American and British Bar Associations who were licensed to act as privateers against the interests of the American states and American state citizens from 1845 to 2013 in flagrant breach of trust. There you go again.
Islam, Islam.
All such licenses are now extinguished. Members of the bar associations are required to cease and desist assaults against the American states and American state citizens, which shall be subject to arrest, confiscation, and deportation otherwise. But let's go past this. Now, notice this. No enforcement upon any American state or any American state citizen is owed as a result of any act of any Congress operating as the sovereign government of the United States of America minor, nor is the board of directors or board of trustees of any incorporated entity whatsoever. All estates, small case, and estates, uppercase, erroneously believed to represent the American states and American state citizens, and which were conveyed by fraud and legal deceit to the United States of America minor, and more recently to the city-state of the United Nations, are revenued without exception to the geographically defined American states and American state citizens, where they shall remain in perpetuity as assets belonging to the rightful beneficiaries. So you see why they're going to show that the land is Morocco? One of them Grand Sheiks and Sheikas are saying that. As soon as you say, they say, they mean over there, right? And chapter 47 tells you the geographical boundaries of the empire. They ignore that, don't they? They've been getting away with it because of this network, because they've been protected by the P2 Masons and other cabal operatives. However, now the Asiatic world is coming at them. That's why the Pope is exposing this. And in due time, these people will enforce caveat emptor on them regencies that they don't know as regencies that have been taken over by COINTELPRO operatives who are busy attacking Tajik. There you go. All legal fiction entities, this is where people are selling packages and people think they got to jump through the hoops to claim your birthright. You don't need to jump through no hoop. How about this? All legal fiction entities, however structured, uppercase, small case, around the corner case, blue, green, whatever, however. All legal fiction entities, however structured and named after American states and American state citizens, are returned to them in their control, free and clear of any debt, promise, encumbrance, or obligation alleged against them as a result of false claims made, quote unquote, in their behalf by officers of the United States of America Incorporated and the United States Incorporated uppercase, or by any official or foreign officials operating the United States of America minor or the United Nations city-state falsely claiming to represent them or have jurisdiction over them. Now you see why they don't teach people jurisdiction? Because they've been under a platform of fraud that they have been helping to protect so that they can screw these people. Now you understand the great sellout that happened in the Moorish Science Temple, why they won't get into this information. Because a lot of people walking around are part of it. Notice this, we're going to end this. We know that the current circumstance, that's the crap that we're dealing with now. Joel said the worst is yet to come. Now we're facing with it. We know that the current circumstance is in part the result of criminal acts engaged in 150 years ago. What's he talking about? What took place 150 years ago? Which resulted in the commercial enslavement of African Americans who were summarily claimed as chattels back in U.S. government debt in wake of the Civil War. The Moorish Divine and National Movement of the World was established at North America as a counter to this activity. Despite every act of abolition, the Declaration of Prohibition against both peonage and slavery, it has been the policy of the U.S. government to enslave its citizens and to operate as a rogue state among the nations of the world. That's what they've been doing, going to and fro the earth, devouring nations in the name of America, in the name of Americans, when they're not Americans and they're not government.
Islam.
And the Grand Sheiks of the Moor Science Temple who have been put in power to make law refuse to step forth and charge them. Therefore, I'm showing you all, the people, what's happening to you. It's up to you all to enforce caveat emptor. Despite every act of abolition and declaration of prohibition against both peonage and slavery, it has been the policy of the U.S. government to enslave its citizens and to operate as a rogue state among the nations of the world. Instead of freeing African Americans, the sum total result of civil wars to vastly expand public sector ownership of slaves, giving rise to the outrageous and improper claims that have been made against the American states and the American state citizens that we are dealing with today. It is uniquely fitting that the Grand Army of the Republic is recalled to settle this circumstance in favor of the people. Attachments: Civil Orders, Anna Maria Wilhelmina, Hanna Sophia Ritzinger von Ritzenstein, Violetto Verbeck, private attorney in service to His Holiness Pope Francis. Documents related. The United States isn't a country, it's a corporation, hidden Vatican crown empire. How come they ain't telling people that? When they knew it all the time. And they know that's why Noble Raleigh set up their old Canaanite temple as a countermeasure to the coup d'etat of 1861. And they've been countering him strategically ever since. He founded the old Canaanite temple, 1913. Woodrow Wilson met with the Jesuits and the bankers of Europe under the secret Treaty of Roanoke off Jekyll Island, Georgia, 1913. No Raleigh upon that crashed that United States shell, which is one of them shells which you've seen up there that the Pope was telling you about. That's why you got to know what all the different United States are. So we're coming from Lincoln, who bankrupted one of them. Raleigh bankrupted two of them. Are we clear?
Clear.
There's your history. Now the Pope is telling you he's the owner of them. So let them argue with Pope. Don't argue with Taj guy. And set and rock. But look at all the trash to us all the time. Well, we cool. We do what we got to do. You know, because the birthright belongs to the people. It don't belong to us. It don't belong to the temple. The birthright belongs to the people. It cannot be sold nor transferred to another. And so, this is why we have put the proclamation out for the general public after much discussion, recognizing that people who should have been doing it had been giving it to the people. We made it available to the people. Moorish National Republic Federal Government, Societas Republica e Alamodocanos, Moorish Divine National Movement of the world. Of the world. Not some club, not some local clubhouse, not some secularism. It is a principle on the restoration of the lost estate. Northwest America, Northwest Africa, North America, the North Gate, Temple of the Moon and Sun, the true and de jure natural peoples, heirs of the land. Judicial notice and proclamation to all elected, all non-elected, and to all appointed United States Republic officials, public servants, and officers of trust, etc. And they're put on notice. And a notice is not an application, it's an affidavit. If there's any rebuttal, let them stand up and rebut. There's been none yet. They just keep trying to bury it and hide it with the help of their Negro leader, Sheiky guys. Who's still pissed because we made it available to anyone since they refused to take it to the people. Anyway, doing business as, of, and for the federal, state, city, and municipal governments, including their personnel, their contractors, and their other associated corporate entities doing business at North America. And to all third-party interlopers or contractors, etc., concerning their fiduciary obligations, their official oaths, and their duties enumerated in the American Constitution adopted for governance of the United States Republic, all binding treaties, the established law of the land, and all statutory and civil law codes of the land, etc. Know all ye men, these publications and presents, upon my heirship and inherited nobility, and upon my private aboriginal indigenous proper person status and commercial liability. And then, of course, your Free National name would be there, being duly affirmed under consanguine unity, pledge my national, political, and spiritual allegiance to my Moabite Moorish nation, being the archaic aboriginals, indigenes of Amexem, the Americas, standing squarely affirmed upon my oath to the 5 points of life, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, do squarely affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and having knowledge and firmly established belief upon the historical, lawful, and adjudicated facts contained herein, being competent in my own proper person to attest to this affidavit upon which I place my signature. Whereas I proclaim and declare the following to be true, correct, certain, complete, not misleading, supreme, and not intended to be presented for any misrepresented color or improper use or purpose to wit. Then, of course, follows up with both status, claims, obligations, etc., a knowledge of the culture, which means once you have a sense of knowledge of your culture, they can't deny you right of common law. Because they deny people right of common law when they don't demonstrate a knowledge of the ancient archaic principles and traditions of their forefathers. This is why some Europeans support it, but even some Europeans use it. But this is where what a lot of them grand chiefs keep attacking us, because what it does, it supersedes them so extreme that they have nothing to tell the people except for to help uplift them. So rather than uplift them, they condemn the truth. But I'm showing you this to show you that it's in harmony with the law and their obligations and with the divine warning by the prophet for the nations. So they can go on their attack with all of their skateboards and every daggone thing else and their training wheels. And the common people will have more information than they're ever going to teach them. They can either come and help the people or leave them the hell alone. Yeah, Taji guy cussed. We ain't got to argue with them. Teach them. And as an example, with their pretending that they don't know these things and don't know that the coup d'etat was set up to steal the people's birthright, and that's where even the fees of the license was done to restrict the people's travel so they could steal their estate and break the families up. That's why they did the driver's license and converted from the foreign corporation onto the living people. That's what that was done for. But the Supreme Court, in harmony with the obligations of the treaty and the Constitution, had this to say. And you know who the greatest critics of this information is? And this is the law of the land. Grand chiefs. And chiefs, yes they are. They've been the most open, they had nothing to say. As a matter of fact, they've been telling people that there ain't no civic organization. And as soon as we educated the people, they came out in the civic platform attacking this, saying we made this up and we creating problems for the people. This is stare decisis, and not only with the Convention of International Road Traffic, see that? That's the Convention of International, that's around the world, right? And World Court decision, The Hague, Netherlands, etc., to which the United States is obligated. Thank you. Thank you, sister. Anyway, these are stare decisis. Now, for those, write this down, stare decisis. S-T-A-R-E-D-E-C-I-S-I-S. Stare decisis means it's constitutionally established law. That means it's not refutable by any court. Are we clear? Needs no litigation, cannot be contested, cannot be countered. Just like res judicata. Are we clear? Huh? S-T-A-R-E, stare decisis. D-E-C-I-S-I-S, stare decisis. And you can find it in your law book. But let's just read this as an example, you all, so that you can get a concept on why this information is suppressed by so-called black leaders with 501c3s and why they won't go there to expose this information. You know what they'd rather do? If our people get abused, they'll start rallies and raise a bunch of funds and give it to some so-called Jew lawyer to deal with abuse rather than enforce the Constitution and act like they got to buy a right or a privilege. Under the barristers, which you can see the Pope even extinguished their license because they've been, privateering on people since the 1800s. And everybody knows that. All scholars know that.
But when you say to them in the temple, Moors not supposed to use lawyers, then they really get tight in the collars.
Yes.
Bring them something to back
Yes,
it up.
give me mic, so I want that on tape.
Well, I was saying especially in the temple when instances had come.
And remember, never charge the temple, because the temple is right.
I say
No,
what instances.
some administrators
Okay, right.
who have been administrating at temples.
Okay.
The temple is right.
Okay.
No, because the other thing that we must do is defend the prophet of the temples. The temples have been misrepresented, and one of the things that bothers me as I travel the country, and I talk to people outside the country too, is that the temples have developed a bad name, but there's nothing wrong with the temple. They have been misadministrated, and what's happened is no one has set those corrupt administrators down, and thus people have the impression that the temples are corrupt. And the temple gets a bad name for corrupt administrators. Do you understand? So we want to make that clear, protect the temple. Because we have to protect that platform for those who are coming. I just want to make that clear.
Okay, Taj, well, that was what I was trying to say. I did a bad job of verbally saying, but what you're saying.
And there's a few who are doing the best they can to administer right.
Is that what I meant? But I worded it improperly.
Yeah, but we don't want to put energy out there that promotes what we need to fix.
Because before then I was saying, I used to say when I was in there, I used to say it's not the temple, it's the people in the temple is what I was saying.
It's not the people, it's the
When I was talking about
administrators.
the administrators in the temple, I didn't.
In other words, this is what we want to do. Because it's our duty and our job, caveat emptor, to protect the prophet and movement. The Moorish Science Temple is a part of the divine national movement. We must promote constitutional law, constitutional consciousness in history so that the people can weed out, under caveat emptor, the infiltrators and corruptors who have been stagnating and misrepresenting the temple. That is our platform. Do you understand? However, like the prophet said, when they're not carrying out my law, get out from under them. You don't knock the temple. You understand? You get rid of the corrupt administrators and clean it up for the next generation. Not because of your opinion, you show them the law. See, we are a nation of law, not a nation of opinion and biases. That's what got us in trouble in the first place, including the fact that the corruptors won't teach this information because they don't want the people to know that their 501c3 skull and bones payoff agreements, you understand, the COINTELPRO, to misguide the temple and give the people a misrepresentation of the temple to run the people out, because as soon as they go in there they start getting mistreated, it confuses them. Then they leave the temple, which is what they want them to do. You understand? Then they squander all the funds that the people do contribute. No progress.
That's right.
Collect bus funds for decades, no bus. And all this rest of stuff. You know, we don't even need to go into that. The deal of it is, if people understand what their rights are, they need to understand the difference between privileges and unalienable rights. They won't teach that because they don't want people to know the difference. This is why they hate Great Seal Moors who deal with government, because we deal with principles that Marcus Garvey exposed and others who understand government exposed, so that people will understand how government's supposed to operate. And when these people are in breach of trust, they're supposed to be removed like immediately yesterday. However, by that not happening, so many generations have suffered. So many families have been broken up. So many children have been dying on the street. So many men are packed in the jail. So many women are trying to raise children by themselves. When these criminals who have been controlling our estate, the wealthiest people in the world, we've been submitting to a bunch of BS of poverty that shouldn't even exist, thinking they're in debt, when these criminals know that that debt belongs to a private corporate entity that the last president bankrupted, and his name was Abraham Lincoln. That's why they suppressed the mobility clause. That's why they suppressed that letter from the Charge d'Affaires, telling these people they lost their birthright because of that Naturalization Act. As a matter of fact, some of them were selling naturalization. You know, but when you see these documents, you see the record, you make your own decision. Not mine, your own. So I'll give you reference so you can see this for yourself. But I'm going to read just these 13 stare decisis to give you a concept of what some of these grand sheiks and sheikesses have been criticizing us for exposing to the people. Keep in mind, this is Supreme Court. What's the supreme law of the land, y'all? Is it not the Constitution?
Constitution and the treaty, and the treaty.
Isn't Article 6 say the Constitution is supreme and the treaties are supreme law of the land?
Yes.
All right. Don't Act 6 of the Moor Science Temple of America says, with us, our people, we're teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed?
Yes.
Oh, all right. Well, let's see what the stare decisis says. The right to travel. Does it say the privilege?
No.
The right to travel, the right to mode of conveyance, the right to locomotion, pardon me, are all absolute rights. Does it say privilege?
Absolute right.
And the police cannot make void the exercise of rights. And then it gives you law case for reference. You see that?
Yes.
That's on your flash drive, so, you know. Yeah. Number 2, the use of the highways for the purpose of travel and transportation is not a mere privilege, but a common and fundamental right of which the public and natural beings cannot be deprived. 3, the right to park or travel is part of the liberty of which the natural person, citizen, cannot be deprived without due process of law under the 5th Amendment of the United States Constitution. Does it say city codes?
No.
Didn't Drawley tell you to help them in this missionary work to enforce the Constitution?
Yes.
Why come the Grand Chiefs don't teach these people this? Because it's against their agenda. How about that?
Ain't no such thing as traffic court.
4, the right of a citizen to travel upon the public highways and to transport one's property thereon, either by carriage or automobile, is not a mere privilege which a city may prohibit or permit at will, but a common right which she has under the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Law case. 5, state police power extends only to immediate threats to public safety, health and welfare, etc., which driving and speeding are not. 6, the state is prohibited from violating substantive rights, and it cannot do by one power, i.e., or e.g. police power, that which is, for example, prohibited expressly to any other such power, e.g. taxation, eminent domain as a matter of law. But they've been stealing people's cars on their eminent domain, ain't they?
Yes, they have.
Yes, they do.
What have they've been doing? They've been robbing people under the guise of law, in violation of law.
Colorful.
So the 501c3 guys don't want us to expose that because they've been getting kickbacks in the background to help perpetrate this against their own people and attack guys like Taji guy who exposed the supreme law of the land, the Constitution that Drawley told them to enforce. They won't attack the Romans because that's where they get their payments. So, the state is prohibited from violating substantive rights. Write down substantive rights and get used to what they are. And it cannot do by one power, police power, that which is, by example, prohibited expressly to any other such power, which you already know. 7, traveling in an automobile on the public roads was not a threat to the public safety or health and constituted no hazard to the public. And such a traveler owed no other duty to the public, e.g. the state. He, she, and his or her auto have an equal right to and on the roadways, highways, as horses and wagons, etc. And the same right is still substantive rule in that speeding running stop signs, traveling without a license plates or registration are not threats to the public safety and thus are not arrestable offenses. See how they've been violating people and getting away with it? With the support of fake sheiks who've been working for them with their 501c3s and attacking people like Taj Tarik Bey for telling the law that Drew Ali told them to enforce. I'm going to be getting on them if they weren't so busy attacking us and still getting their work done. But I ain't playing with them criminals who keep selling out the movement in the name of Sheikdom. 8. Under the United States Republic Constitution system of government and upon the individuality and intelligence of the citizen, the state does not claim to control one's conduct to others, leaving one the sole judge as to all that affects oneself. Translation, they've been finding people for not having seatbelts on. They don't have authority to do that. They've been robbing people in the name of law.
That's trespassing.
That's called color of law. You should sue them and go after their bonds, including the sheiky guys that keep supporting them and getting their 501c3 kickbacks from that fund in the background, pretending it's Jesus' head. 9, where rights secured by the Constitution are involved, there can be no rulemaking or legislation which would abrogate them. That means anything that they come up with to abrogate those rights is already a violation of color of law, already a fraud. As soon as they start even thinking about it. 10, the claim and exercise of constitutional rights cannot be converted into a crime, and that's exactly what they've been doing with the help of their sheiky guys, with their 501c3s. 11, for a crime to exist, there must be an injured party. It's called corpus delicti. Get used to it. There can be no sanction or penalty imposed on one because of this constitutional right. There's law case. 12, if any tribunal, that's from courts, right? And they're claiming to be courts, they're really tribunals. Find absence of proof of jurisdiction over a person and subject matter, the case must be dismissed. So what happens if you don't challenge the jurisdiction? You waived your right, they've been stealing your right. With the help of your grand sheiky guys who refuse to enforce the Constitution. See the problem? Was Act 1 of the Moorish Science Temple of America, they supposed to be enforcing the law. "11, for a crime to exist, there must be an injured party." That's what a corporate delicti is. Is a picture camera, can you question that accuser?
No.
Can you injure a camera, take a picture of it?
No.
Violation of law. Just remember, you scared the sites, you kick them in their pieces when they be doing all this stuff to you. But you shouldn't have to do it. The grand sheiks and sheikas should have been doing it already. But since they won't do their job, that's why we expose this information to the public. That's why they mad at us for putting these proclamations out. Because it's educating people and it's exposing, not only have they not been doing their job, they've been taking kickbacks and 501c3 skull and bones agreements in the background, secretly, thinking that the people would never find it out. Tell them it's for Jesus' half. For teaching the word. Yeah, right.
Taj.
13, I'll read this and then I'll answer your question. Lack of federal jurisdiction cannot be waived or overcome by agreement of parties. Are we clear?
Clear.
Lack of jurisdiction cannot be waived or overcome by agreement of parties. So that means you can get a license and it still doesn't give them jurisdiction, and it still doesn't waive the substantive right that's already secured by the Constitution. You can't even agree to fraud.
Wow.
Supreme Court.
Islam.
A want of jurisdiction may not be cured by consent of parties. So you can't even consent and cure the argument of jurisdiction. Why they won't teach these people jurisdiction and status? Because it's not in their interest. Because their pockets won't be jingling as much. I just wanted to show you as an example. Since we've been under attack, we're not going to defend ourselves. We let the law defend us. And Drawley in the bond morning told them grand chiefs and chiefs to enforce that Constitution. And this is stare decisis, which means Constitution supported law of the land with all obligations and treaties in force. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, question, Chris.
Okay, good question.
That's why we put the proclamations out, because it became apparent they ain't gonna be teaching these people.
That's the main thing you got.
So we're just making it available to the people, you know, and trust that they be honorable. Don't shame the prophet and the movement. Exercise their rights. Do what's necessary. Teach their neighbors. Teach their children. And when they do, the bull collapses because they only are able to do this criminality because the people believe that they're government when they never were.
Taj,
Yes.
is there any circumstance
Any sandwiches left?
where a temple can be a 501c3?
No.
Sure. Legal.
Well, yes. Now, why did we go through this history? To show you the platform that was constructed in order for this corruption to have a life. Without that platform, it couldn't happen. They overthrew the Republic to undermine the Constitution and the treaty. That's why Raleigh set up the old Canaanite temple for the restoration of the lost estate. You need to know what the estate is. I went through these different documents and records and war acts and histories and Secretary of State and Congress to show you the false platform and show you for it to be obvious to you what you're to do as an act of Moorish America to restore the estate. You must help in the great missionary work of enforcing the Constitution for the United States of America, even show you the shells.
I understand it, Taj. I just wanted to say, I wanted to be clear,
But
that under no circumstances should a temple be a 501c3. And
you make that determination because the law is showing you what it is. In other words, it's like this. Nothing wrong with the temple. Let's get that very clear.
Nothing.
What you mean, should some administrator who's controlling the temple violate the law
Right.
and put them under that false jurisdiction, making them think it is government, when it's actually a private kickback agreement? That's what you should be saying. Now, what you do with that, caveat emptor or not, that's up to the people. Didn't Drawley do caveat emptor?
Yes.
Did the people enforce it? You have any history of that? So they've been catching hell ever since, that's why, because they have not been enforcing the law.
Not
Didn't Drawley tell you if you didn't enforce the law that the worst would yet to come?
Yes.
Now, the temple don't do anything, it's an institution. Name a man or woman who did that corruption to the temple. It's called enemy to the cause. That's why Drawley did the additional bylaws. What do you see in the first act of the additional bylaws? Anybody got a questionnaire?
Yeah, I got one.
Can I have that for a minute, please? Yes, please. Matter of fact, and then I want you to show this on the camera so they can see this. Now, why did the prophet, our prophet, Noble Drawley, have to do additional bylaws? Didn't he already have 7 acts of the constitutional bylaws of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science and adopting the Moorish Science Temple of America? Well, he had to do additional laws.
Yes.
7 again. And what does number 1 say?
I'm about to grab the other one-on-one, bro.
By the prophet Noble Drawley, grand chiefs and governors and heads of all temples, all businesses. Each said temple must be approved by the prophet Noble Drawley before acting upon by any members. Let it be finance, property, or any line of life that will cause the members to sacrifice finance, etc., that will cause the support of any group of members. Any former officer that violates these laws is subject to be removed from his office under a heavy restriction, etc., by the prophet or the grand chiefs. Have they been removed?
No.
Have they been enforcing the Constitution?
No.
Have the people been enforcing additional constitutional bylaws?
No.
That's why that happens, brother.
Got it.
It's up to people to enforce the Constitution or not. Now, let's look on the back of our authority. Most of you familiar with this, so I'll get to the primal points. August 1928. Y'all got that date?
Yes.
Corporation, religious affidavit of organization, state of Illinois, county of Cook, right? File for the record. Form number 1099. I, Noble Drawley, right?
Yes.
And then it has a space for the recorder. Solemnus Jacobic. Moorish Holy Temple of Science, held at Chicago, in county of Cook, state of Illinois, on the 20th day of July, AD 1928. So the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, in 28,
720.
right? For the purpose of the following, persons were appointed chiefs, according to the rules and usages of such Moorish Holy Temple of Science. Do solemnly swear that at the meeting of the members of the Noble Drawley, Mealy, Eel, Small Bay, Lovett Bay, and Foreman Bay, the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, deriving its power and authority from the great Quran of Muhammad to propagate the faith and extend the learning of the truth of the great prophet of Ali in America, to appoint and consecrate missionaries of the prophet and to establish the faith of Muhammad in America, and said Moorish Holy Temple of Science adopted as its corporate name the Moorish Science Temple of America. So the Moorish Science Temple of America, 1928 until 1929, lifespan of Noble Drawley. Prior to that, they had the civic organization, the Moorish Temple of Science. The old Canaanite Temple were civics. And they will not emphasize that. As a matter of fact, they've altered the documents and changed the Moorish Science, the Moorish Holy Temple of Science to the Moorish Science Temple, changed his name to the Moorish Science Temple of America. Fred changed his name to Fred. You know, and people who don't understand contract law, they can get away with that, but they don't get away with that with a scholar. That's why they don't like us teaching. That's why we're here in the House of Reawakening Minds and venues like this to take this information to the people to whom it belongs and suggest that you help in the great missionary work of uplifting fallen humanity and giving you documents to back it up so you can see who your friends are and your enemies are and understand why you're catching hell today while we're still poor, while they're gentrifying your communities when this movement has been active for 102 years. They're more busy attacking guys like us rather than doing the work. So now it's up to you, the people, to save your lost estates. Therefore, reversion of estate. And set up a trust as quickly as you can. Learn those things necessary because they're going to hypothecate everything they can snatch from you to satisfy their debt with the help of these 501c3 secret back pocket, get a piece of the action guys, claiming to be leader guys, sheiks, sheikesses, grand sheiks, ministers, black leaders, community guys, civil rights guys, all 501c3 skull and bones kickback organizers to keep their people passive while they get screwed. Anyway, for the moment, I want to thank you all for coming out to the House of Reawakening Minds, etc.
Islam.
Go ahead, Islam.
Islam, yeah.
Islam.
All right, it's cool that he's wrapping up. You can keep this on Facebook Live if you want to. We gotta make a habit of recognizing people while they're still here. Too many times we wait till people transition or they move on or pass on, and then we want to recognize them and recognize their work. So tonight we want to recognize two people. We want to recognize Mother Delilah sitting in the back because her solar return is February 13th. And we also want to recognize Taj Tarik Bey because his solar return was February 14th. So before we leave, I bought a couple cakes down there. I bought a vegan cake down there. It's all natural. Anybody who wants some, we can break word on that. And I bought a regular cake down here for people who got a sweet tooth. So we're gonna break bread with both of those. Dr. Nyla has a card she's gonna read. And then if y'all want to, we can sing happy birthday to these folks.
Oh my God.
I'll follow this card. Because I'm not going to give it to him, I'm just going to read it. How about that? My way. Happy Born Day to two of our favorite people. Some people have a great perspective on life, a positive attitude, a generous heart, a joyful spirit. Some people understand the wisdom of making the most of every day and inspire us more than they know to be like that too. You two are two of those people, and we feel so lucky to know you. Happy, happy, happy Born Day, solar return to both of you.
Thank you. Thank
So before we break bread, me personally, I want to thank Delilah. Outside of just recording classes, recording my classes, recording Tasha's classes, she's there for anybody who needs help. As long as I've known her, if she can help, she definitely will.
That's right.
She never had it.
Don't say no. Don't say no.
She never had a closed door. She always had an open door. She opened up her home and welcomed everybody in. So anybody who needed help, she was there to help you. So from the bottom of my heart, I love you.
All right.
Don't say no. Don't say no.
I can't say enough about Taj, man. Me and Taj just got a friendship, a relationship, a bond. And I can't say enough about him, just Taj. And I love you too. So happy solar return to both of y'all. And peace and love.
Thank you.
Y'all singing? Somebody singing?
Oh my God.
Happy Earth Day, happy Earth Day to you. Happy Earth Day to you. Happy Earth Day, happy Earth Day, happy Earth Day, happy Earth Day. One more time. Happy Earth Day to you. Happy Earth Day to you. Happy Earth Day. Happy Earth Day to you. Happy Earth Day to you. Happy Earth Day. Love you
Some more love.
As you're getting your cake, don't forget, we have product over here. Brother Kalaya Bey has that wonderful herbal salve that is for everything, wells, pain, inflammation. Brother Hassan has the 432 hertz meditation instrumentals. I have some things to hold your bones in your car. And yeah, I have the organite, and we have.
Don't confuse the temple's purpose with people attacking this information. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because the information belongs to everybody. But understand their motive as to why not exposing this and why they don't like people like me who's exposing it, because it shows not only that they're in breach of trust, they've been hiding this information. And that our people have been on a treadmill fighting in the wrong direction, giving up their birthright when they're supposed to be redeemed from that platform. So, Let me give you an example. I'm give you an example so that you can see in Tropicon's letter. And this is why I give it to people on the flash drive too. All right. But I know this. See, when you share this information with people who may not have any bent one way or another, they're not necessarily, they're just interested. But if you give them information and they have any kind of sense of reasoning, basic critical thinking, some of them will be the best redeemers of our people and never had a nationality card and will do more work for the uplifting of our people than a lot of these people that got all these badges and jewelry and fezzes with different colors and been in the movement for years, walking around like peacocks while our people have been suffering.
Yes.
But their pockets have been full.
Yes.
With their 501c3 kickbacks. And it ain't about Jesusness either. You know that for sure, too. But anyway, let's go to Tropicon's letter. But I want to express to you again why certain things we do redundantly to remind people, because if they start retaining this, they'll start thinking on their feet. Once it's uncomfortable with it. Like when you're training doing katas or something like that in karate or jabbing and stuff like that, and they smack you. It's like, oh, that hurt me. So you make me respect the game, because you get in the real world, they're gonna try to take your head off. And after a while, it becomes natural to you. You just dance. It becomes natural. But first, like somebody do like this and you go, oh.
Yes.
But after a while you get comfortable, take off them training wheels and get with it, right?
Yes.
Likewise, once you understand what they did to steal your birthright, remember the protocols is the overthrow of the Republic in order to negate their obligations to the Constitution and to the treaty, etc., which is the supreme law of the land, and to enslave the descendants of the Moors on their own land, with the cooperation of many of their own so-called leader guys who keep calling themselves black. Not by accident. If you teach the people the history, they will see the spurious intent and operations, and when you teach someone else, this is what happens. Since the U.S. corporate operations is backed on bonds, those bondage is not a chain. The bonds were set up after Lincoln bankrupted the United States Corporation Company that was registered in France. They re-registered it in Puerto Rico. Keep this in mind. Lincoln bankrupted it. They re-registered it in Puerto Rico and in Guam. All right? That lasted until 1913. Then New Drali came along and spoiled it. It crashed again. They re-registered it again. That lasted up until 1928-29. They got rid of New Drali in 29. It crashed anyway. It wasn't exposed until 32-33. Louis McFadden planned to sue them on this basic principle that we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
So they poisoned him when he went visit his daughter in New York. Right? Trafficant talked about it in '96. Of course, they killed him a couple years ago now. Then he spoke before the Congress and exposed part of it, including the fact that they converted the allodial titles in 1913 to mortgages and deeds. And so you understand that anyone that's holding any office in the United States Corporation Company is essentially the Knight Templar, Knight Columbus, if they're Europeans, etc. So that's kind of a breach. So they killed him a couple years ago. Nevertheless, we've been exposing even his correspondence to the people for years, and still being attacked by Grand Chiefs in the Moorish Temple. As corporation, entity owners, directors, or administrators, nor for its subsidiaries or associates at any point or moment in time. And so what you lock all doors by which they're alleging that you're agreeing to the debt. This is predicated on what we've been talking about tonight and a few other things, but if you understood what your nationality and birthright is, if you understood what's been hypothecated, if you understood understood that the U.S. corporation company platform is set to administer it, and you understood that these subdivisional agencies are members of the Roman Curia, with its operatives being secret members of the Roman Curia, and their job is to assist in robbing you, this is your statement made to repudiate them on the record, for the record, in any matter, from a ticket to a mortgage foreclosure. Are we clear? Give him the mic.
Okay, so,
Now start back so we can hear everything you said.
Okay, and I said I do have a question then, because you got me thinking now. In lieu
Which is why we're talking.
in lieu of us being the Ahuti, the original communicators that you have reiterated so much, right? What we're doing a lot now is like even like how we're streaming or we're communicating on phones or whatever, right?
Which is your
We
job
all-
to do. Now remember this, let me slow down because it's appreciated what you're doing, but Drawley commanded all sheiks, grand sheiks, and all conscious Moorish Americans to not only produce literature, but to keep up with the electronic age, radio, etc.
Yes.
You're supposed to be communicating. And because those who have been charged decades ago to deliver this information to the people have breached their trust, it is your duty to make sure it gets out there. It is our duty, being conscious Moorish Americans, your elders, to see that you get this information in spite of them blocking you, in spite of them pretending that we're renegades and a whole bunch of other things, because we're going to give you the documents and make sure you freely share them with others. And when their consciousness raises, the bonds die. Keep this in mind. This is the key. All U.S. private corporate bonds that were constructed since the basis of the Civil War and associated with the United States Incorporated, I do therefore publicly and privately proclaim and declare my divine and natural rights to my corporal and incorporeal hereditaments, and affirm, notice, and claim reversion to my estate. Therefore, and this is the nature of understanding what we've been talking about all night, all right? This will be used in any instance in its nature, dealing with any administrator pretending to be judge, any so-called collectors of so-called fake credits, any so-called law officers, so-called, any so-called banks, mortgage companies, whatever, they're all Roman. Whenever you deal with any one of them, you deal with the Jesuits. Anyone, doesn't matter whether Sears, Roman Jesuit. Kmart, doesn't matter. You understand? They're all members of the Roman Curia. All right? I, the living man and rightful heir, am not lost at sea. We'll discuss that later. I affirm and declare my right of reversion of estate, and I make no claim with respect to the title and misrepresented name, man of straw, and nom de guerre being a title, and the spurious creations of the foreign de facto United States corporate operatives, actors, and owners. And I surrender and assign any and all reversionary interests to the foreign United States and subsidiaries for full acquittance discharge settlement. Write that phrase down. Acquittance discharge settlement. And closure. Write that down. Because you need to get that grounded with yourself later. All right, we ain't going to go into it necessarily tonight, but you get that grounded. Of my reliance, Title 12, United States Code 95A, Part 2. Write that down. And I assume no liabilities. I repeat, and I assume no liabilities or debts, however contrived, among its associates. And I do not consent to stand as surety, quote unquote, for the foreign United States, all caps, / U.S. After the administration of Abraham Lincoln, from that time and date, a de facto Congress of the United States Corporation plotted and planned to hypothecate the estates of all the natural peoples of the land, claiming the lands and estates as booty and prize. The assumed spoils were hypothecated to their own private usages for profit and for sale, via the stock market and by private transfer. For all intents and purposes, all following de facto legislation issued by them, the fake Congress, was directed to achieve that goal. The intent and this prison mission was and is to convert such rights, estates, and properties to their own benefit and to escheat, write that down because you need to know what that means, the stolen wealth under the jurisdiction of their foreign, for-profit, and private kinship oligarchy. With redundancy, one must be reminded of the Act of Congress 1871. One is advised to at least make a public proclamation that demonstrates that one is not volunteering one's estate or property or rights to support or to agree to the frauds initiated by that alien and de facto Congress. Reversioner. I, the living man or woman, and then you can put your attribute there, name or attribute, and then you can also interject the nom de guerre in order to demonstrate that you're authorized representative for that estate, although it's in an next rel position because you didn't create it. But you do have a claim there too, all right, by reversion, all right? So I, the living man, woman, repudiate and rebut all hypothecation claims made by foreign persons doing business as or so